The defeat of the Roman army in the 260th year at Edessa and the capture of the Emperor Valerian by the Persians led not only to another crisis of power in the empire itself, but also to a military crisis that threatened the loss of the entire East. It was the essence of the age that the consequences of military defeat in the political sphere were far more significant. The Persians naturally intended to capitalize on their success and invade the empire. The rebellion of the military leader Macrianus, who already saw himself on the throne of the empire, added to the problems. In these conditions, which created not only huge risks, but also huge opportunities, and appears the king of Palmyra Odenat, who with one movement of his hand completely turns the entire playing field. Odenat was the hereditary ruler of the kingdom of Palmyra, which was dependent on Rome. Until this year, he, except for the rule of his small fiefdom, built quite a normal career as a Roman patrician. Under Philip Araba received the status of senator. He was given under the command of a small Roman garrison. He was a relatively successful military leader, received the post of governor of the province of Phoenicia. Palmyra was one of the buffer frontier kingdoms that provided a strategic foreground to the Roman defensive system. Therefore, after Edessa, it was obvious to Odentates that soon the Persians would visit his home and make an offer that would be impossible to refuse. But Odenatus had his own offer. Gathering the remnants of the Roman troops in the region, local mercenaries and militia of Syrian peasants, Odenat unites for a while with Macrianus, suddenly swoops on the relaxed Persian army and so beats it that on the shoulders of retreating reached as far as the capital of Persia, Ctesiphon. After such a performance, the Persians lost all desire to fight. The victorious Odenat returns to Palmyra, and at that moment he realizes that an unprecedented window of opportunity has opened before him. Without reflection, he swears allegiance to Gallienus, who at that moment already seemed to be a downed pilot, thus securing for himself the legal rights to further actions. Odenatus then moves his troops into Asia Minor, where he defeats Macrianus and a couple of smaller usurpers. Characteristically, Odenathus accomplished all this with an army assembled from poorly trained soldiers, which shows him to be a gifted military leader. That's it. Peace in the East is established. It is established by Odenat, and therefore he sends an embassy to Rome with a demand to recognize his authority over the East. Gallienus, who at that moment was burning literally everywhere, was undoubtedly glad that at least somewhere there were people ready to stand on his side. Odenat, in fact, did not demand anything impossible and recognized Gallienus as emperor, even minted coins on his behalf. Therefore, Gallienus gives Odenat title commander of the Romans and corrector of the East, giving him military and civil power over the East. Odenat himself, though, did not pretend to the Roman throne, but on the fact of victory over Persians has taken the title of Shahinsha, the king of kings, that hinted at his increased ambitions. Actually, the contract with Odenat transferred under authority of Tsar of Palmyra all east of empire, except for Greece, the western part of Asia Minor, and Egypt. Odenat had full power here and could act without considering Rome, bogged down in internal conflicts. But this power was based on the positions given by Gallienus, as well as recognizing the subordinate position in relation to Rome. As Palmyra Empire of Odenat was flesh from flesh of Rome, and therefore he faced the same problems as Gallienus. Since Palmyra was in a better economic position due to the wealth of the local provinces than Rome, Odenatus was able to buy the loyalty of most of the army, and any attempts at usurpation were quickly suppressed. But while control over the army and administration was strong, control over his own family was not. In the end, 7 years later, Odenat and his eldest son were killed at the instigation of his second wife Zenobia, who wanted to elevate her infant son Vabalit to the throne as quickly as possible in order to rule from behind his back. The murderer of the emperor, his cousin Maeonius, was killed almost immediately after the crime was committed by soldiers, whether as planned by Zenobia or by happy circumstance for her. After clearing the way of her rivals, Zenobia managed to consolidate the local elites and army around her with the help of money and a little violence. From the Palmyreans' point of view, the change from one ruler to another did not change anything. Vabalit was given all the same titles and positions as Odenat had, but there was one small nuance. The only inherited title Odenath had was King of Palmyra. All the other territories he ruled were subject to him based on his status as corrector of the East and Dux, issued by Gallienus. And therefore in Rome Gallienus has perceived all this as usurpation of authority, as only it could issue the mandate on management of Roman provinces. On happiness, Zenobia punitive expedition against Palmyra has not taken place because of murder Gallienus. Zenobia has quickly realized that in turbid water again it is possible to fish, and for compensation of losses on bribery of elites an army has invaded Egypt. That it was in a greater degree robbery raid speaks the fact of fast leaving from there of armies, even not looking that the Roman demonstration of forces had purely symbolical character. Nevertheless, the fact of easy capture of Egypt undoubtedly pushed Zenobia on a new adventure, but now already with the purpose to fix there for a long time and put thereby a knife to the throat of the empire. It remained only to wait for a convenient moment, and such came in 269th year. After the death of Emperor Claudius in Rome again happened a small parade of usurpers. Zenobia on this background arranges blitzkrieg, captures Syria, Arabia, and Egypt. Roman armies in the region were swept away, and those who tried to resist were either killed or executed. Zenobia does all this under the sgida of strengthening the power of Rome in the regions. Meanwhile, in the west, on the new emperor of Rome Aurelian, several invasions of barbarians have fallen at once, and he has suffered a loud defeat under Placentia. From the outside it looked so that Aurelian either soon will be thrown down by soldiers or will be killed by barbarians. And therefore Zenobia goes via bank and declares the son August, and itself Augusta, thus designating claims already on a Roman throne. Daring but completely untimely, Aurelian manages not just to fight off the barbarians, but to strengthen his authority so much in the process that no more usurpations were out of the question. The appearance of a new pretender to the throne Aurelian could not tolerate, and he, with significant forces, will invade Egypt and in a quick campaign completely destroy the Palmyra Empire. Of all the separatist entities, Palmyra was the most promising yet doomed entity. The rulers of Palmyra held power solely on the fact that they could regularly buy the loyalty of the army and elites by possessing the richest regions, but they had no legal basis to rule the conquered territories. The ambiguity of the situation, when you are sort of a monarch and sort of subordinate to another monarch, led to the fact that as soon as the Roman legions appear on the territory of Palmyra, its entire structure will begin to crumble instantly. For Palmyra to emerge a truly independent state, a competitor of Rome, it had to last at least 30 years, during which it would be possible to formalize the idea of independence among the elites. But Palmyra had no time, and the empire, which rapidly emerged from nowhere, just as rapidly disappeared into nowhere.